Hello, back again. So I got sent this by someone, thank you very much, to have a look at, and I'll put a link below so that you can have a look for yourself as well. But I just want to have a look at Candace Owens' analysis of George Floyd and him being martyred, in her words, by the black community in America. So Candace Owens, if you don't know, is a black Republican woman. She's been pretty vocal the last couple of years, and I find her very interesting, and I feel that she must be under a lot of pressure as well, just from the position that she's been sort of flung into. She is now the poster woman for black republicanism and black conservatism. And that must be a heavy burden. So I just want to preface this with that, and with the fact that I find her ideas on black people in America having to be democratic, and that assumption being made about black people, I find all of what she says on that very, very, very interesting, and I think there's something to that for sure. She is my age, I think, maybe a little bit younger, maybe a little bit older, but around my age. So what I will say is, if she's anything like me, she's not fully formed any opinions yet. So I just can't imagine being in the position that she's in. It must be really hard. So yeah, I'm prefacing this with that. But I watched her video, and one of the main things that she keeps saying is that he was being uplifted and martyred by the black community, and being made out to be like an amazing, upstanding citizen. I don't think that is true. I think she set up a bit of a straw man there. I don't think that is the case. I think what she's conflating is being an upstanding citizen with being a sweet and kind-hearted person to those around him. You can be sweet and kind and thoughtful to those around you, and also be not doing very well in life. And, those two things, they're not mutually exclusive. They can be true at the same time. So I found that to be a difficult part to listen to. I do want to say, she did say she doesn't believe he should have died that way. And obviously he shouldn't have. But Candace's problem seemed to be with the fact that a criminal's face was being used to represent the black community. I think that's really the issue. And I understand that a little bit. I think with how black people have been portrayed for so long in the media, to want to try and get away from that criminality like as glamorous. I can understand wanting to get away from that, but I don't think that's what's happening with this. I've said this before. I think, like me, a lot of the black community were actually quite shocked that so many people got on board with this particular case, because we have seen it so many times in the past. So I don't think it. I don't know that it's fair to say that the black community chose to martyr this criminal and glorify a criminal and whatever. But I found Candace's she pointed out that Floyd was high at the time of his arrest and that on the call the person who called the police said this, and that there was a baggie dropped on his arrest. She goes on to say that she's all for giving second chances, but the third, fourth, fifth, it's too much. She detailed his run-ins with the police, and here I wonder if she was being willfully ignorant in her analysis of this, because she talks about the fact that most of his run-ins, particularly early on, were for very small quantities of coke. And I think that speaks to the over-policing of poorer areas. I think that speaks to racial profiling. I think that speaks to the idea of like white drug use not being a problem, because if he was a Wall Street guy taking coke like that, it would be fine. So is it that there's a problem with poor people getting caught with drugs and then being kept in this justice system loop for the rest of their life, which is what we hear about a lot from the black community, particularly from black men. We hear that a lot in America, that you get caught early on, you are on probation and various things. It becomes very difficult to live a legitimate life, and so you're forced into a different type of life that you probably wouldn't have lived if you hadn't been caught early on with a small bit of drugs that a lot of middle class people get away with having all the time. So I wondered if she was being willfully ignorant there. She goes on to talk about a violent crime that it sounds like. I haven't verified any of this, I have to say that. But she goes on to talk about him being part of a burglary gang and being quite a prominent part of that crime. And I just don't see what that has to do with this. She does, to be fair, she does say he hadn't been in trouble for another 5 years after that and all of that. But her takeaway is still that he shouldn't be martyred. That seems to be the general consensus. She goes on to talk about how police brutality is apparently a myth. Now, and like racial profiling is a myth. Now, I don't believe that that's true. And she gives us some statistics that seem cherry-picked to me. And I won't go into that too much because obviously I haven't done my own statistics and done my own research on this. But statistics without context are useless. And the context that she didn't give was what I was just talking about, of over-policing of poor areas which generally have, especially in America, minority, ethnic and black people particularly, highly concentrated because of the history of slavery and oppression of black people, and like not being full citizens and being forced into ghettoization, the loop of the justice system, institutionalization, what that does to you, poverty, just what that can do to you. And she didn't look at any of that, which I felt willfully misrepresented the facts. Two final points on that. She used the bad apple defense for police, saying that you can't paint everyone with the same brush, which I found quite ironic, because that's what people are saying about black people too, and that not all of them are criminals and those kind of things. She also talks about the fact that online, on anonymous vlogs and things, she's seen people talking about the fact that this shows that black people are just being black, doing the usual black stuff by martyring a criminal. And yet she doesn't believe that racial profiling and police brutality against black people is a thing. And I don't see how you can hold those two notions in your head at the same time. That you can be aware of quite blatant racism online, but think that that won't permeate into institutions, and particularly like ones where you're allowed to have authority over those people. I felt a little bit like it was a willful misrepresentation of the facts. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was an emotionally led thing where she felt like the black community were sort of short selling themselves. I don't know, but I just wanted to talk about that because I do respect her very much, and I respect the position she's in and the pressure that must put on her too. And